This is 400 seconds per podcast. Concise conversations with extraordinary women leading hope and change in the climate crisis. I'm Becky Downing. How do you fight for a safe environment in the face of devastating forces of nature? Marinel Ubaldo had just turned 16 when Super Typhoon Haiyan destroyed her village in the Philippines in 2013. She's now a leading climate activist on the world stage, propelling change for marginalised communities in the global south. Marinel has spoken at COP21, been trained as a climate reality leader by Al Gore, and is the country coordinator for the Philippines at this year's United Nations Climate Change Conference of Youth. For this episode, Natalie Butler spoke to Marinel about climate leadership, localised engagement, and the importance of resilience in the face of environmental trauma.
You're an extremely accomplished and effective climate activist. How would you describe your leadership style? And how has it helped you to seek justice for those most affected by the climate crisis?
When I was a child, when I was in high school, I always got to see a lot of leaders and big organizations go to our community and tell us what to do and tell us what are the solutions to our problems. And I thought, if I will be a leader someday, I would go to the community. I would empower the community. I would make sure that they get the best support because I know that they already have the solutions to the problem that they face in communities. And there are most of the opportunities that are being given out there are just available for the middle class and climate activists because those activists in the grassroots communities don't have the access to those informations and opportunities. And I think it is really important to make sure that they know and they have the access to these information.
I'm really concerned about increasing accessibility to conversations with the youth and like what you said with the local communities. So can you tell us some more about the work you do in these areas and like what tactics you use to increase this engagement?
You know, climate change is already a very complex issue. And a lot of people in the remote communities, in the marginalized communities, in the vulnerable communities, a lot of them are fishermen and farmers. And here in the Philippines, most of them are illiterate. My father is illiterate. He wasn't able to go to school because at the age of 8, he needed to go to the sea in order to provide for his family. When you talk about climate change, when you communicate about climate change, you have to make sure that it is on their context. You have to integrate it with the experiences that they have in the community so that they would understand, they would have an empathy to what is happening. And it was really amazing when I was doing this community work. I was talking about climate change and how and why is it that the ocean, the sea is already at their front yard when it wasn't there before. I told them about the sea level rise. I told them about the glacier melting. I told them about the effects of climate change, and they were so surprised because they know that there are things that the environment is changing, and they have just come to connect the dots when we told them in their own language, in their own setting, in their own context, that this is climate change and this will affect you in this way.
You're representing the Philippines at the upcoming UN Climate Change Conference of Youth and in Glasgow. And this is going to produce a global youth statement that puts forward policies for the summit. What do you think are the key issues that need to be raised?
We have already a lot of platform to share our stories on the ground. And I have been sharing my story for how many years now. And I have been tired of just being told that I am inspiring or my stories is touching because those are not enough. I mean, personally, I would really appreciate if leaders would just quit saying that you're inspiring, but really act on what your key demands are. Because I don't need them to tell me that I'm doing a great job because I don't have a choice. You didn't give me a choice. I have to do this because I don't have a choice. And climate change actually makes the poor poorer. It is destroying a lot of lives, and even though a lot of people that I know, even though they have survived a very monstrous climatic disaster, they didn't have anywhere else to go because they don't have a house, they don't have a livelihood, they don't have their family members there anymore. They're just all alone. And I have a friend that she was really having this guilt that she's alive. And that is maybe one thing that we should communicate in climate negotiations, is to make sure that there is a mental health and psychosocial services after a disaster. Whenever there is a disaster, though you don't know what to do anymore because the trauma is there already and all the feelings just piles up, and your vulnerability adds up, and that is actually making you casualty again. Our days are numbered, our years are numbered, and if we don't act now, if we will just waste our time sitting on conferences and talking about how we could do it, but really not put more time and effort to implement these plans in the communities, everything would go to waste. And I mean, we don't have any time, and we don't need another Youth for Climate event. We don't need another conference. And when we go back, are you actually funding our own initiatives? No. I would have appreciated it if we have made a proposal there, and then they would fund the implementation of that in the grassroots communities, because that would be more sustainable than just attending a 4 days event and then go home and then just nothing would happen.
400 Parts Per Million is an ecological arts project by Theatre in the Rough, exploring young women's experience of the climate crisis. Join us online from the 8th to the 11th of February 2022 at 400.earth, supported by Arts Council England and the PH Holt Foundation.